Di episode 2 sebelumnya, kita sudah belajar mengenai potensi plastik yang dapat terus didaur ulang sehingga berpotensi membangun ekonomi sirkuler. Pada kesempatan ini, kita akan ngobrol dengan pelaku industri plastik. Mungkin banyak yang mempertanyakan, kenapa kita mengundang pelaku industri plastik yang jelas-jelas mendukung pemakaian plastik? Di dunia ini bukan melulu berisi aktivis, akademisi, dan ilmuwan. Ada juga pelaku ekonomi yang perlu kita perhatikan juga kepentingannya, sehingga kita bisa menemukan win-win solution yang sustainable bagi semua pihak. Selain itu, kita juga mau belajar mengenai upaya-upaya yang telah dilakukan oleh industri plastik dalam menyikapi isu plastik sebagai musuh lingkungan hidup.
Hi everyone, our guest today is the head of sourcing and sustainability at Dynapack Asia. It's one of the biggest provider of rigid packaging and plastic catering to the Southeast Asia and China market. Welcome, Sebastian. Thank you for coming.
Hi everyone. So I'm Sebastian, working at Dynapack Asia since 3 years, and I'm French originally.
For many years, plastic have become an essential part of our life, but now the use of plastic is facing scrutiny more than ever before because most of plastic products are disposable, and once it's not used, it lasts in the environment forever, and it end up in the ocean and threaten the marine ecosystem. So how do you see this? Do you agree that we should say no to plastic?
Well, I think the answer is obvious from us and as a plastic manufacturer, but I would say also as an individual. For me, I would not walk into a plastic company if I would believe it will damage the planet. I'm a diver, so I dive regularly in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, and love the sea. So I unfortunately have seen the effect of consumption, on the beaches and the coast of the region, and I'm very concerned. So definitely wants to change the industry and change. I think it's not the plastic industry we're speaking about; it's also the industry, the consumption industry that we have as a society.
So what do you do as, especially your work in plastic producer company, what is your company doing to reduce this plastic problem? Do you have a recycling program or recycling facility, or you probably do research to discover a new material that is more eco-friendly?
To speak about plastic, what I'd like to say is first is to speak about sustainability. So how do we, as a company, but also as individuals, try to limit our impact on the environment? So I think when you speak, when you eat, you produce carbon emissions, you produce waste every day as an individual, same as a company. So it's really how we think about the planet, not only with the plastic pollution, but as a whole. So the products we use, the products we discard every day, how do we make this in an ecosystem which is respecting of the environment? And when we speak about the environment, we need to really consider air, water, land, earth, forest, etc. So if I don't use a plastic bag, but I use a paper bag, there's a tree behind. If I don't use a plastic bag, but I use a cotton bag, then there's other resources required from the planet to make this cotton bag. So everything we do is using something on the planet. So now I think we have, as consumer, there are choices that we need to make sure that what we use every day is in the best format for respecting the planet and not harming it, not polluting it, and so our grandkids can benefit from this environment.
Okay.
Now, where is plastic standing? I think plastic is a fantastic material. It's cheap. It's easy to make. I mean, fairly easy to make, and has a lot of different applications. So it's been used very widely, and plastic has contributed greatly to, I think, the development of modern society, convenience, whether it's on food or beverage, but on multitude of products, or phones, or cars are lighter thanks to plastic. So now plastic also lasts 400, 500 years before to decompose. So indeed, if we do not manage properly plastic waste, then we see it in the ocean or we see it in the land. And for Dyna Asia, clearly the goal is not to make products and see them 6 months or 1 year or 2 years after ending up on the beaches of Indonesia or Thailand or Vietnam. So I think we have quite some actions we are working on to start recycling, start using recycled resins. So I think in the last 2 years, we've launched few products with some key customers to have 50% or 100% of recycled resins. So this is in the market today in Indonesia. If you buy a Bango or Sunlight bottles, you will see 100% rPET. So it's good. It's contributing to this circular economy. Now we are also taking steps to do recycling ourselves, start collecting also plastic. It's a very complex step, but we should do some big progress in the next 12 to 18 months in this scale.
Okay, so you start using the recycled resins. You get it from other party, and you haven't. You just started to develop your own recycling facility.
Yes. So today we have started a foundation a few months ago, which is collecting plastic around Jakarta. And 200 tons were already collected in June, for example. And in a year and a half, we have ordered machines, and we should start operations to produce recycled plastic that we will then use for 2022.
Okay. Is there any, in terms of the cost, is it more expensive to produce plastic from scratch or using the recycled resins, and also, is there any changes in the properties of the plastic because you use the recycled one?
So cost-wise, it's an important question. So cost-wise, today, using recycled resins for the applications we're doing. So we're doing rigid packaging, the bottles for shower gel and beverage, etc. This recycled packaging is more expensive. Now, from a property standpoint, plastic, contrary to glass or copper, cannot be recycled indefinitely, but there's definitely quite a significant number of times where we could reuse that plastic. Now, this is also where in this circle, maybe it's not 100% closed loop. There's a bit of new material coming, and we use some old materials, and then the mix that it's created can be good enough for the packaging we will make. I think this is also the packaging producer to find solutions to make it work. Okay, so this is not an excuse.
Okay, I was just wondering if Indonesian government has a law that says it is mandatory for business, especially for a plastic producer, to manage their own plastic waste or recycle it.
Well, our waste is very small. So the waste we produce since years, I mean, it's it's very minimal in our operations. It's more when we do changeover, because of course it's not profitable to make waste, right? So we don't want to waste anything. So there are laws in Indonesia, like many countries, to make sure any waste that you produce in a manufacturing process will not end up in the environment or in the river beside the factory. We are definitely very respectful of these laws, and this is not only for the plastic waste, it's also for some chemicals or any ingredients we will use. Now, for the plastic waste that we have, we found solutions to, so last year we started a collaboration with pallets producer. So they use our waste to compress it and make some new pallets, okay? And then we use these pellets into our production. So the pallets usually are in wood to carry, goods from factory to factory or to load on vessels. So now we can have those recycled pallets made with all waste. So there's really no loss here. I think what you're speaking is more the waste from the consumer.
Yeah.
Once you have consumed your shower gel and then hopefully happy with it, then send it to the trash bin. Then how does it get used again? Yes, that is a big challenge today in Indonesia. There's no specific law to force brands or plastic converters to recycle it. Now, there are various discussions happening in Indonesia, but also at Southeast Asia or Asia levels, because I think everyone is concerned since 2-3 years on this plastic waste accumulation on the beach.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that the cost of recycling is more expensive, and I assume that the consumer ended up paying extra money to buy, like for example, when they get a bottle of mineral water, usually they pay this much, and suddenly the price increase if the bottle is recycled. And you say that the recycling process it's not indefinite, so you cannot keep recycling the same plastic, right? So nowadays we have seen like many alternatives to plastic that is more eco-friendly. How do you compare this? Have you ever come across to any study or data that compare whether they are more cost effective in terms of production and the recycle?
Well, this is, I think in your question, what's the word which is interesting is eco-friendly. How do you define eco-friendly? So I'll take the example of the cotton bag. If you use a cotton bag, so with a lot of, I think in all the supermarkets now around Jakarta, we cannot have plastic bags anymore. A plastic bag, it's very, very light. It's less than 3 grams. So the carbon emissions, the water needed to produce a plastic bag is very small, very, very small. If you use a cotton bag, I think, of course, the studies will vary, and the study maybe I read and reference will be more in favor of plastic. But I think even if you look at really this cotton bag example, then to create that cotton bag, you need thousands of liters of water, you need inks. And if you want that cotton bag to be eco-friendly versus a plastic bag, you need to use it 6,000 times, 7,000 times, pending the studies. So let's be on the low range, 6,000 times. 6,000 times means, you use your cotton bag from 10 years old to 60 years old, 3 times a week, and you never forget it. And then that solution is eco-friendly. Now, of course, if you forget your cotton bag and it goes into landfill, the pollution of this cotton bag, is not the same as the plastic pollution. So, but from air standpoint, carbon emission standpoint, water use standpoint, there are maybe negatives with those eco-friendly solutions that people don't see today. And I think this is where I don't say the plastic bag is a better solution, but what I say is plastic and cotton and aluminum and glass, all these different packaging solutions can have a purpose which fits a specific use. And now we, as consumer and producers, brands, need to find the right mix on how we use one or the other on the right application.
Okay.
And today, unfortunately, all the alternatives to plastic, I think there are always drawbacks. So you can use bioplastic, but if you use bioplastic, means you need to grow crops. If you need to grow crops, you're using land, you're using water. Maybe you cut forest. I mean, I don't think we want to cut more forest. So, we already have issue with the palm oil production. So there's no magical solution today, but this is really where we need to understand each solution of materials and really think that, the packaging term is to protect and carry something. So when you protect cucumbers or various goods on the market or in a supermarket, then it's also to make sure they don't rot. Now, do we need all this primary, secondary, tertiary packaging? Maybe not, but if you waste 30% of the food you put in the supermarket or that you carry to your home, you need to consider, okay, should I better waste 30% of the meat or cucumber or tomatoes I buy, or add packaging and then, protect maybe 95% of my food, I don't lose it. Now, the challenge for us, it's to make sure, whether it's glass or aluminum or plastic, that whenever it goes into a trash, it should not end up in the ocean. And we need to make sure we should have a good, collection system to take the trash of the waste of everyone and succeed to find new way of use.
Okay. So what do you suggest then to the public to minimize this problem while we're waiting for a better alternative to plastic? Like, is it better to minimize the consumption or probably more focusing on the plastic separation?
Well, first, when you use something, whether it's plastic or not, make sure it goes into a trash, because that sounds very basic, but it's unfortunately a reality that we face everywhere. And it's not only in Asia, I think it's really around the world, that I think we really need to educate everyone that you cannot just throw away your garbage. If you go picnic somewhere in the nature, you just cannot leave things there and it will disappear. It never disappears. So, and whether it's plastic or anything else, it should be properly managed. So I think that's a very basic, but that would be my first comment. I think, reduce, reuse, recycle, are things we should do. As a company, we are working on recycling, but I think we have few engagement, and one of them is with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and the Global Commitments, where we want to, we committed to produce only 100% recyclable products by 2025. So that means everything which will go out of our lines could go into a recycling bin and be recycled. And then to that 25%, the ingredients will be using actually recycled resins. That's two points, but I think another model that this engagement is promoting is also on the reuse. How do we succeed to have bottles and reuse it few times and refill with product? If you have a good shower gel, bottles, or you can probably use it 2, 3, 4 times before it needs to get discarded and then recycled. So today, the business model in Asia do not exist to collect all these used bottles and refill them and use it for 3-6 months, refill them again. But I think this is an action which will develop a lot over next years.
Okay. I think that's all, Sebastian. Thank you very much for being with us today. It's very nice to speak with you.
Thank you very much.
Dari pembicaraan kami dengan akademisi, aktivis, maupun industri plastik, kami jelas menangkap kuatnya potensi ekonomi dari plastik. Namun, sudahkah siap masyarakat Indonesia dalam menyambut potensi ini? Permasalahan sampah ini adalah permasalahan tidak kalah penting dengan permasalahan lainnya dan memerlukan solusi dari negara. Melihat potensi ekonomi dari sampah, mungkin inilah waktunya kita berpikir kembali mengenai bagaimana cara kita melihat permasalahan sampah plastik yang sedang kita hadapi saat ini. Kita perlu berhenti berpikir bahwa konsumsi itu selesai ketika sampah dihasilkan. Mungkin sampah bukanlah produk akhir. Kita bisa melihat bahwa sampah adalah bahan baku dari suatu kegiatan ekonomi yang baru. Walaupun begitu, dengan teknologi yang ada saat ini, tidak semua sampah plastik memiliki nilai yang sama. Karena itu, kita juga perlu berpikir ulang mengenai bagaimana kita menggunakan plastik. Plastik mana nih yang benar-benar kita butuhkan? Mungkin musuh kita itu bukanlah plastik itu sendiri, melainkan bagaimana cara kita menggunakan dan mengelola plastik tersebut. Semoga video ini mencerahkan, dan jika kalian ada komentar, jangan ragu untuk tuliskan di kolom komentar. Dan jangan lupa klik subscribe, like, dan bunyikan loncengnya.